A perfect circle is the most resilient shape in nature. Now imagine that wisdom forming the blueprint for entire cities. We are going to uncover the secrets of circular cities, architectural marvels built on a forgotten harmony between humanity and the environment. By the end of this journey, you will see the very ground beneath our feet in a completely new light, discovering a set of lost principles our modern world desperately needs to rediscover. What profound understanding did ancient planners possess that we have overlooked? Why would a civilization choose to build its home in the shape of a sacred symbol? The answers lie in ruins and legends, from the concentric rings of Atlantis to the sun-baked streets of the Indus Valley, each holding urgent lessons for our climate-challenged present. What does a truly balanced city feel like to you? This sacred geometry was not merely decorative, it became a blueprint for survival. To truly grasp why, we must step back from our modern maps of rigid grids and right angles. For ancient civilizations, the world was not a collection of separate problems to solve, but a single, interconnected system. The sun did not just provide light, it dictated the rhythms of planting and harvest. The wind was not just air moving, it could bring life-giving rain or carry away sickness. The circle, in its perfect symmetry, was seen as a vessel for capturing and harmonizing these immense, flowing energies. Building a city within its bounds was an act of profound alignment. It was a statement that human society should mirror the cosmic order, not fight against it. Think of it as tuning an instrument to resonate with a fundamental frequency of the universe. Every street radiating from a central point, every concentric ring of housing, every circular plaza was designed to channel this harmony directly into the heart of the community. This was environmental engineering guided by spiritual insight, where the well-being of the people was inseparable from the health of the land and sky. So when we look at the first great circular cities, we are not just seeing clever urban planning. We are witnessing a three-dimensional prayer for balance, etched permanently into the earth itself. That central point, the axis mundi, was more than a landmark. It was the beating heart of a cosmic idea. For the people living within these circular designs, their entire city was a sacred microcosm. Every journey inward was a movement toward the divine, and every step outward was a return to the world. The layout itself became a daily physical prayer. You did not just live in your city, you participated in its symbolic order with every path you took. This profound integration of belief and architecture created a powerful psychological anchor. The temple at the center was not hidden away for special occasions. It was the visual and spiritual focal point from every corner of the community. This constant, subtle reminder fostered a shared identity rooted in something greater than any individual, embedding a reverence for natural and cosmic cycles directly into the rhythm of daily life. To see this principle in its most iconic form, we turn to a legend that has captivated humanity for millennia, the tale of Atlantis. Plato described it not just as a powerful empire, but as a perfectly engineered circular city. Its concentric rings of water and land, bridged and tunneled, were said to channel divine energies and create a paradise of balance. While its physical existence remains a mystery, the description is a perfect blueprint of the sacred microcosm principle. It shows us that the ideal city in the ancient imagination was a geometric hymn to harmony, but we need not rely solely on legend to find this principle etched in stone. Plato's detailed account of Atlantis gives us the most complete ancient blueprint for a circular city. In his dialogues, he describes a magnificent capital built on a hill near the sea, engineered with astonishing precision. At its center stood a temple dedicated to the god Poseidon, shimmering with precious metals. Radiating outward from this sacred heart were three concentric rings of water, alternating with 2 rings of land. Each ring was connected by a system of canals wide enough for the largest ships to pass, and tunnels were carved beneath the bridges to allow smaller vessels to move freely between the rings. This was not a haphazard design, it was a masterwork of integrated planning. While the historical truth of Atlantis remains one of history's great mysteries, the environmental intelligence embedded within its description is undeniable. Those alternating rings of water and land formed a brilliant natural system. The waterways provided formidable defense, yes, but their true genius lay in resource management. They created a vast, controlled hydrological network for irrigation, ensuring stable food production. They facilitated effortless transportation of goods and people throughout the city, reducing the need for overland roads. Perhaps most importantly, this massive body of water encircling the urban center would have acted as a natural climate moderator, absorbing heat during the day and releasing it slowly at night, creating a more temperate and stable local environment. This reveals a principle far ahead of its time, the idea of designing a city to work with hydrological cycles, not against them. It is a principle we are painfully relearning today, as modern engineers develop sponge cities designed to absorb rainwater rather than funnel it away in concrete channels. Plato's vision, whether drawn from myth or a faded memory of a real place, captures a profound truth that the most advanced civilization is one that harmonizes its footprint with the elemental forces of water and earth. The blueprint of Atlantis finds its echo in solid, sun-baked brick. Far from being mere legend, the ancient cities of the Indus Valley offer us a breathtaking glimpse into how these principles were actually lived. For over 1,000 years, from around 3,300 BCE, this civilization thrived across what is now Pakistan and northwest India, building some of the world's first major urban centers. While we often picture them as grids, a closer look reveals a profound circular intelligence woven into their very foundations. Take the remarkable city of Dolavera, a settlement built on an island in a seasonal salt marsh. Its entire layout was dictated by the shape of the land, following a gentle, organic curve. At its heart, you would not find a towering temple, but something arguably more vital, a series of massive, meticulously engineered reservoirs. These were not just holes in the ground, they were architectural feats, lined with precisely cut stone, and designed to capture every precious drop of monsoon rain. The entire city, with its concentric rings of fortifications and neighborhoods, seemed to spiral around these life-giving pools of water. This was environmental harmony in its most practical and urgent form. The city's shape and structure emerged directly from a conversation with the local ecology, a dialogue between human need and natural limitation. Every street, every house, every wall was positioned in relation to the central water source, making the community's survival inseparable from its sustainable management. It was a circular design born not from abstract geometry, but from the essential circular journey of water itself, from sky to reservoir to home and back again. This leads us to the true marvel of these cities, a system so advanced it would shame many modern municipalities. That reverence for water was expressed in stone and ceremony across the ancient world. While the Indus Valley built reservoirs, another civilization elevated this principle into an art form, weaving water into the very soul of their city. In the high Andes, the Inca created their own sacred microcosm at Machu Picchu. This mountaintop citadel, often celebrated for its breathtaking vistas, is a masterclass in hydrocentric design. The Incas did not simply find a mountain with a spring, they engineered the entire landscape to honor and harness water's flow. A complex network of stone channels begins at a natural spring on the north slope, capturing every drop. These channels were not hidden, they were a central feature, running alongside stairways and through ceremonial plazas, their gentle, constant sound a backdrop to daily life. The water was directed through a series of 16 ritual fountains, each a place for both practical use and spiritual reflection. The most important fountain flowed directly beside the Temple of the Sun, physically linking the life-giving element with their most powerful deity. This was not mere plumbing, it was a form of liquid architecture. Every cascade and pool was a visible reminder of water's sacred journey from the mountain's heart to the community's hands. By making the system beautiful, ceremonial, and utterly central, the Inca fostered a deep, collective responsibility for its purity and preservation. No one would dream of polluting what was so clearly a gift from the gods. This stands in profound contrast to our modern reality, where water arrives invisibly through buried pipes and departs just as silently through sealed drains. We have engineered ourselves into a state of forgetfulness, no longer participants in the water cycle, but merely its anonymous consumers. The ancient principle is clear: when you hide a resource, you stop valuing it. When you make it the heart of your home, you protect it with everything you have. This hydrocentric wisdom points toward a third, even more foundational principle, one that governed not just the placement of water, but the very orientation of every street and building. The ultimate expression of this alignment was not written in a blueprint, but in a sacred diagram. Across Southeast Asia, the spiritual concept of the mandala shaped kingdoms from the ground up. A mandala is far more than a beautiful pattern. It is a cosmic map, a geometric representation of the entire universe used for meditation and spiritual focus. Now envision that intricate, symbolic diagram expanded to the scale of an entire capital city. This is exactly what happened in places like the magnificent Angkor in Cambodia and the royal city of Yogyakarta in Indonesia. These were not just places to live, they were conceived as living, breathing mandalas made of earth, water, and stone. The city layout became a physical prayer. Concentric walls and moats mirrored the diagram's rings, symbolizing layers of spiritual attainment and protection. At the very center, instead of a simple temple, rose an artificial mountain, a towering pyramid-like structure such as Angkor Wat, representing the mythical Mount Meru, the axis of the world in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. Every citizen, from the king to the farmer, lived within this sacred geography, their daily movements a participation in maintaining cosmic order. But this was not merely a symbolic act, it generated astonishingly practical benefits. The vast network of moats and the enormous barrays or reservoirs of Angkor were the engineering marvels that made the symbolism possible. These giant, rectangular lakes were not just for ceremony, they were colossal thermal batteries for the entire region. Acting as massive heat sinks, they absorbed the fierce tropical sun during the day, cooling the air around them. At night, they slowly released that stored warmth, mitigating the chill and moderating the local microclimate in a way that made the dense urban center more livable. More directly, they captured and stored monsoon rainwater with breathtaking efficiency, providing a reliable, year-round water supply for drinking, bathing, and most importantly, for feeding a population that may have numbered over 1 million people at its height. The spiritual mandala and the hydrological system were one and the same, a seamless blend of cosmology and ecology that sustained a civilization for centuries. This reveals a principle so profound it feels almost magical, that when you design a city to mirror a sacred ideal of balance, you inadvertently engineer it for profound environmental resilience. The circle, the mandala, the cosmic diagram, these were not just shapes, they were instructions for survival. And sometimes the most powerful instructions are those we can no longer fully read, etched in landscapes we have forgotten how to see. The stones of those ancient cities did more than just hold up walls, they breathed with the seasons. This is the third lost principle, bioclimatic architecture, a silent conversation between a building and its environment. Long before the hum of an air conditioner, comfort was not a switch to flip but a puzzle to solve with sunlight, wind, and earth. Circular city design was a master key to this puzzle. The very shape offered a natural defense. In wind-swept plains or deserts, the continuous, curved outer wall presented a seamless barrier, deflecting and diffusing harsh gusts that would batter a flat facade. Inside, the magic unfolded. Those central open plazas and radiating streets were not just for gathering, they were engineered for ventilation. As the sun heated the central space, the warm air would rise, pulling cooler air in from the periphery through the narrow streets, creating a gentle, passive breeze that flushed the entire city. This was urban air conditioning powered by physics and thoughtful design, but the intelligence went deeper, right into the very fabric of the homes. Builders did not import fancy materials. They used what the land provided: thick walls of local stone, sun-dried mud brick, or rammed earth. These substances have high thermal mass, meaning they absorb heat slowly and release it even slower. A mud brick house in a hot climate would soak up the daytime heat, keeping the interior surprisingly cool. Then, as the chill of night descended, the walls would gradually release that stored warmth, providing a gentle buffer against the cold. The home itself became a thermal battery, cycling energy in a daily rhythm that mirrored the sun. This was not a luxury, it was a fundamental principle of resilience. Every architectural choice, from the city's grand circular form down to the composition of a single brick, was a response to a simple question: how can we live here comfortably forever, using only what this place gives us? The answer created habitats of profound sustainability, where human need was woven into the existing tapestry of wind, light, and stone. This deep integration with place did more than regulate temperature. It fundamentally shaped how people lived together, turning necessity into the very glue of community. A city's geometry quietly scripts the story of its people. When every path curves gently toward a shared center, daily life becomes a subtle dance of connection. The radial design of ancient circular cities was a masterstroke of social engineering, one that naturally wove individuals into a tight-knit community. Unlike the endless, isolating grids of modern suburbs, where homes face away from each other and long streets lead to nowhere in particular, the circular plan pulled everyone inward. Your journey to the central market, the temple, or the communal well was not a private commute, but a shared pilgrimage along converging streets. This layout made chance encounters inevitable, turning simple errands into opportunities for conversation and exchange. It ensured that no citizen, whether they lived in the outer ring or closer to the heart, was ever too far from the city's vital resources and social pulse. The physical distance to the center was democratized by the very shape of the place, fostering a powerful sense of equity and collective identity. You were not just living in a district, you were living in a relationship with your neighbors and the shared heart of your home. This intentional design for cohesion stands in stark contrast to the segregating sprawl of many contemporary cities, where economic divisions are often cemented by zip codes and long commutes. In the circular city, the architecture itself whispered a constant reminder: you are part of a whole. And this interconnectedness extended beyond social bonds into the most fundamental act of survival, feeding the community itself. This seamless integration of community and landscape reached its most practical expression in the very food people ate. In the circular city, the line between the urban and the agricultural was beautifully blurred. Those wide, protective walls and the spaces between concentric rings were not merely for defense or ceremony, they were often transformed into productive land. Imagine walking along a radial street not past blank walls, but beside terraced gardens spilling over with vegetables and fragrant herbs. Central courtyards within larger homes were not just decorative, they were miniature orchards or plots for staple crops. This was the fourth lost principle: integrated urban agriculture. and it transformed the city from a consumer of resources into a living, breathing producer. Food security was not a distant concern managed by far-off farms. It was a daily reality woven into the fabric of every neighborhood. The distance from farm to table could literally be a few dozen steps. This hyper-local system had profound benefits. It drastically reduced the energy and labor required for transportation, a form of ancient efficiency we are only now relearning with concepts like urban farming. Organic waste from homes and markets did not pile up as a problem. It became a resource, composted to feed the very soil that grew the next season's harvest. This created a beautiful, closed loop of nourishment right within the city walls. Beyond sheer practicality, this green weave softened the urban environment. Climbing vines provided shade on sun-baked walls, garden plots supported pollinators and local biodiversity, and the scent of blooming herbs filled the air. The city was not a sterile monument of stone. It was a productive ecosystem, a place of both shelter and sustenance. This deep integration of life and livelihood points toward a final, often overlooked layer of genius in the circular design, one that provided not just nourishment but ultimate protection. The unbroken curve of a city wall was its greatest strength. With no vulnerable corners to undermine, attackers faced a seamless barrier where defenders could move swiftly along the top to meet any threat. A principle of military efficiency understood from ancient fortresses to the star-shaped bastions of later centuries. Yet this formidable shape served a deeper, more human need. The wall created a powerful psychological threshold, a definitive line between the cultivated sanctuary within and the vast, unpredictable world beyond. Stepping through its gates was not just entering a city, it was crossing into a realm of human order, community, and perceived safety. This sense of defined sanctuary was fundamental, offering inhabitants not just physical protection but a profound mental anchor, a belonging to a place that was distinctly and intentionally theirs. And in the most ingenious designs, these walls were never mere inert barriers. They were living, multifunctional structures. In some cities, the thick ramparts housed shaded walkways with panoramic views, or their broad tops were lined with soil for growing food, turning the very apparatus of defense into a source of sustenance. Elsewhere, water channels were ingeniously routed through the walls themselves, using the massive structure's thermal mass to help cool the water supply before it reached the public fountains below. This was holistic thinking at its finest, where every element served multiple purposes, blending protection, utility, and environmental harmony into a single, resilient form. The ideal of the circular, integrated city did not vanish with the ancient world. It simply adapted, its core principles echoing through the ages in the dreams of philosophers and the ambitious blueprints of Renaissance visionaries. The dream of the harmonious circle was not buried with ancient stones. It resurfaced centuries later in the minds of artists and architects who saw the world anew. The Renaissance, a period of explosive rediscovery in art and science, also rekindled the ancient vision of the perfect city. Thinkers like Leonardo da Vinci and the architect known as Philaret looked past the cramped, often chaotic medieval towns of their day and began to sketch something radically different. They drew what they called ideal cities, breathtaking plans laid out with the precise geometry of a compass and ruler. These were not just architectural fantasies, they were manifestos for a new kind of society. Their designs featured wide, radial boulevards that channeled sunlight and fresh air into every quarter, grand central piazzas for public gathering and civic virtue, and intricate networks of canals designed for both efficient transport and, crucially, for public sanitation. This last point was revolutionary. After the devastation of plagues that swept through overcrowded, unsanitary medieval cities, these visionaries understood that beauty and health were two sides of the same coin. A beautiful city, in their view, was by necessity a healthy one. Their canals were arteries of cleanliness, intended to wash away waste and bring fresh water, merging practical engineering with an aesthetic ideal. While few of these grand plans were ever constructed at full scale, their legacy is profound. They crystallized a principle we might call aspirational harmony. For these Renaissance masters, the goal of urban design was a seamless triad, where stunning beauty, flawless function, and deep environmental sensitivity were not competing priorities, but inseparable requirements for human flourishing. Their work asks us a haunting question. If this vision of balanced, healthy, beautiful cities was so compelling, so clearly understood by some of history's greatest minds, why did it not become our default? Why did this intelligent, holistic model fade into the background, while a very different blueprint came to dominate the modern world? The compass and the straightedge began a quiet war for the soul of the city. While Renaissance dreamers sketched their harmonious circles, a much older, more relentless blueprint was already marching across continents, the Roman grid. For the engineers of the Roman Empire, efficiency was the supreme god. Their famous castrum plan, a rigid grid of straight streets centered on a crossroads, was a masterpiece of rapid deployment and control. It allowed for the swift movement of legions, the easy parceling of land for veterans, and the imposition of a predictable order onto any conquered territory. This model was phenomenally successful for empire building, and its logic never truly faded. Centuries later, when the engines of the Industrial Revolution began to roar, this grid found its ultimate expression. The new priority was not harmony, but throughput, the frantic movement of raw materials, finished goods, and laborers. The straight line was the path of least resistance for railroad tracks, sewer mains, and telegraph wires. City planning became less about creating a living ecosystem and more about facilitating the machinery of production and commerce. Land was no longer a partner in a sacred dialogue. It was a commodity, neatly subdivided into standardized lots to be bought, sold, and built upon with maximum speed. The right angle was not a philosophical choice, it was an economic one, the simplest shape to survey, fence, and tax. In this furious new world, the subtle bioclimatic intelligence of the circular city, with its curves designed to catch breezes and its integration with local hydrology, was seen as inefficient, even frivolous. Why waste time aligning a street with the sun's path when a straight line got coal to the factory faster? The complex, holistic principles that saw a city as an organism were discarded in favor of a simpler, more brutal metaphor, the city as a machine. This historical pivot was not merely a change in style, it was a fundamental rewiring of our relationship with the places we inhabit. We traded environmental conversation for economic transaction, and in doing so, we built the foundation for every urban challenge we now face, from stifling heat islands to alienating sprawl. That machine-age blueprint now feels like a tightening cage around our modern lives. Yet the ancient principles of the circular city never truly vanished. They simply went underground, waiting to be unearthed by a new generation of visionaries who see the cracks in our concrete world. Today, from the misty coasts of Scotland to the sun-drenched plains of India, a quiet revolution is taking shape, not in grand declarations but in living experiments. These are the modern echoes of that lost harmony, places where the circle is returning as a blueprint for a different future. Consider the eco-village of Findhorn in Scotland, a community that famously transformed a windswept caravan park into a lush, productive landscape. While not a perfect geometric circle, its design philosophy is profoundly circular in spirit. Homes are clustered in small, neighborly groups around shared gardens and common houses, with footpaths meandering through food forests and past renewable energy installations. The layout intentionally minimizes private cars, making every essential resource, a workshop, a bakery, a learning center, reachable by a short walk among friends. This is not nostalgia, it is a practical rediscovery of the social and environmental logic that guided ancient planners. fostering deep connection both between people and with the living land that sustains them. Across the world in Auroville, India, the aspiration is even more explicit. Founded with the vision of human unity, its master plan is literally a giant circle. The city radiates from a vast peace area at its center, with zones spiraling outward for industry, culture, residence, and a permanent green belt. The goal is a city that grows organically like a living cell, where no one is too far from the heart and where urban sprawl is held in check by a defined, nurturing edge of forest and farmland. These are not isolated curiosities. They are living laboratories proving that the principles of integrated, human-scale design are not relics, but urgently relevant tools. This revival is also reshaping mainstream urban theory. The early 20th century Garden City movement, pioneered by Ebenezer Howard, directly channeled the ancient ideal of the self-contained community. Howard envisioned towns limited in size and surrounded by permanent agricultural greenbelts where residents could live, work, and find recreation without enduring long commutes. It was a conscious rejection of the polluted, overcrowded industrial city, a return to the concept of the city as a balanced ecosystem. Today, that same impulse has evolved into the powerfully simple concept of the 15-minute city. The idea is breathtakingly straightforward, that everyone should be able to meet most of their daily needs for work, shopping, education, healthcare, and leisure within a 15-minute walk or bike ride from their home. This is the ancient Radial city principle translated for the modern era, a design goal that naturally discourages endless sprawl, reduces car dependency, and strengthens neighborhood identity. It makes the community the fundamental unit of life again. Even in the infrastructure we take for granted, the circle is making a pragmatic comeback. The humble roundabout, now replacing signalized intersections across the world, is a tiny lesson in flow and integration. By keeping traffic moving in a continuous, gentle circle, it reduces idling emissions, cuts down on severe collisions, and handles variable traffic volumes more gracefully than a rigid stop-and-go system. On a larger scale, the green belts that many cities now strive to protect, those rings of parkland, forest, or farmland around urban areas, are a direct echo of the ancient protective and productive edge. They provide recreational space, protect biodiversity, manage water runoff, and enforce a literal boundary against ceaseless expansion, insisting that a city must have a defined relationship with the nature that surrounds it. All these modern experiments, from radical ecovillages to mainstream policy tools, point to one undeniable truth: the principles of circular design, of integration, of human scale, and of environmental conversation are not outdated mysticism. They are a timeless operating system for building places that are resilient, healthy, and deeply satisfying to inhabit. They show us that the most profound innovation might not lie in inventing something new, but in remembering something very, very old. This local resilience was built on a fifth, vital principle: the decentralization of resources. In a truly circular city, the most important systems did not stretch over distant horizons. They were woven into the neighborhood itself. Water came from captured rain and protected springs within the territory. Food grew in the gardens between homes and the fields just beyond the walls. Energy, in the forms of firewood, charcoal, or even the labor of animals, was drawn from the surrounding managed woodlands and pastures. This localization was not a limitation, but a profound source of strength. It meant the community was not held hostage by a distant drought, a blocked trade route, or a broken imperial aqueduct. If one local well ran dry, others within the city's domain could compensate. If a garden plot failed, the next ring of terraces might still produce. The system was designed with redundancy, where the failure of a single part did not trigger a catastrophic collapse of the whole. This logic of decentralized, localized systems is experiencing a powerful modern revival. precisely because our current model shows such alarming fragility. Think of a district energy system where a single, efficient plant provides heating and cooling to a dense cluster of buildings, instead of each structure burning fuel independently. This is a return to shared, localized utility. Or consider the rise of community-supported agriculture, where a neighborhood commits in advance to a local farm's harvest, shortening the supply chain to a matter of miles and creating a direct bond between eater and grower. Most strikingly, the push for local renewable microgrids, neighborhoods powered by their own solar panels, wind turbines, and batteries, is the ultimate modern expression of this ancient principle. It is the pursuit of energy sovereignty at the community scale, ensuring that even if the vast, centralized grid falters, the lights in one town can stay on. This shift in thinking reveals a deeper, more radical transformation in how a society perceives the very byproducts of its existence. Nature's most elegant rule is that nothing is ever truly thrown away. In the self-contained world of the ancient circular city, this was not a lofty ideal, but a simple fact of survival. Every output from daily life was scrutinized not as garbage but as potential. This is the sixth lost principle, the closed-loop system, and it represents perhaps the most profound break from how we live today. In those communities, organic kitchen scraps and animal waste did not pile up in a foul heap. They were carefully composted and returned to the garden plots, completing a nutrient cycle that kept the soil rich and productive without any external fertilizer. Wastewater from washing and cooking, what we call grey water, was not mixed with sewage and flushed away. It was often channeled through simple filtration systems to irrigate non-food crops or fruit trees. Even building materials followed this logic. Homes were constructed from local earth, stone, and timber, materials that, at the end of their long life, could crumble back into the landscape without leaving a permanent, toxic trace. The entire city functioned like a forest ecosystem where the falling leaf becomes food for the soil that feeds the tree. This stands in stark opposition to our modern linear economy, a system we might describe as take, make, and dispose. We extract resources, shape them into products often designed for short use, and then discard them into landfills or incinerators, a one-way street that creates pollution at every turn and treats the planet as both an infinite mine and a bottomless dump. The ancient model asks a radically different question. What if we designed our cities so that there was no such place as a way? This is the core of the circular economy, a concept modern engineers and planners are now struggling to retrofit onto our existing infrastructure with immense cost and complexity. It demands that from the very first sketch of a building or a product, we consider its entire life cycle. Can its components be easily disassembled and reused? Can its materials be safely composted or recycled back into high-quality raw material? Implementing this at the scale of a modern metropolis is a monumental challenge, but it reveals the genius of the older, simpler approach, where the constraint of local resources forced a beautiful efficiency. This cyclical thinking did not stop at the city gates. It fundamentally shaped how people understood their place within a larger, living world. The land itself was the first and most sacred blueprint. Long before a single stone was laid, ancient planners engaged in a profound and patient dialogue with the earth, a practice we might call geomancy. This was not magic in the theatrical sense, but a deep, observational science of place. They would walk the proposed site for days, even seasons, reading the subtle language of the landscape. They noted where the purest springs emerged from the ground, learning the land's hidden hydrology. They observed the prevailing winds, sensing which ridges offered shelter and which valleys might become wind tunnels. They tracked the path of the sun across the sky in summer and winter, understanding where light would fall and shadow would linger. This meticulous reading allowed them to identify the most favorable spots, not just for a single building, but for the entire city's heart and limbs. The principle at work here was one of profound humility and adaptation. The goal was to fit the human design to the generous contours of the land, not to force the land into a rigid, preconceived grid. A hill became a natural acropolis, a bend in a river formed a defensive moat, a sheltered valley was reserved for agriculture. This minimized the environmental disruption of construction, as builders worked with the terrain's logic rather than against it. It also maximized the natural benefits the site offered, from passive solar heating to natural drainage. In a very real way, the city was not built upon the land, but grown from it, its form an echo of the surrounding hills and waterways. We engage in a technological echo of this ancient practice every day. Modern topographic analysis, geographic information system mapping, and environmental impact studies are our tools for reading the landscape. They allow us to model water flow, assess soil stability, and protect sensitive habitats before a shovel breaks ground. This is geomancy translated into data points, a way to rebuild that lost dialogue with a place. One specific architectural marvel from the ancient world perfectly encapsulates this and all the principles we have discussed, acting as a living library of environmental harmony carved in stone. The heart of the city pulsed with a quiet, multifaceted life. This central space was far more than a simple clearing or a decorative plaza. It was the living core of the community's entire existence. Imagine standing in that open center, surrounded by the gentle curve of radiating streets. Above you might rise the spire of a temple, the spreading branches of an ancient, sacred tree, or the communal hearth where a fire was kept burning day and night. This was not a monument to be viewed from afar, but a space to be inhabited and used. It was the stage for the city's most important rituals, where leaders gathered the people to make collective decisions under the open sky. It was the marketplace where goods and stories were exchanged, the dance floor for seasonal celebrations, and the quiet refuge for daily contemplation. This multifunctional core wove the spiritual, the social, and the economic into a single, inseparable tapestry. Every citizen had a personal relationship with this space, their footsteps wearing a physical connection to the heart of their world. But its genius extended beyond human activity. Environmentally, this large, open center was a masterstroke of passive design. Unpaved and often planted with grasses, shrubs, or shade trees, it acted as a giant, permeable sponge. When rain fell, instead of rushing off paved streets into overwhelmed drains, it would soak into this central earth, recharging the groundwater beneath the city. The vegetation and open soil created a cooling effect as moisture evaporated and plants provided shade, making this central zone a natural refuge from the heat, a true green lung for the entire urban body. This lush, managed space also became a sanctuary for biodiversity, supporting birds, insects, and small animals that contributed to the local ecosystem's health, from pollination to pest control. The principle at work here is one of profound integration. The central commons served the gods, the community, and the local ecology all at once. This stands in stark contrast to the rigid monofunctional zoning of the modern city, where we designate one area for commerce, another for worship, another for parks, and yet another for civic buildings, often separating these vital functions with wide roads and long commutes. We have fragmented the holistic heart of the ancient city into specialized, disconnected pieces. So how do we measure a city's success by these ancient, integrated standards? It is not merely by economic output or population density, but by the vitality of its shared heart. Can a child safely play there? Can a community gather there to debate its future? Does stormwater nourish life there or simply flood away? Does the space feel alive with multiple layers of purpose for people, for ceremony, and for nature? The ancient blueprint suggests that a city's true resilience is measured by the health and multiplicity of its center. a lesson that echoes powerfully in our own efforts to reclaim and reanimate the neglected plazas and parks of today. This integrated thinking did not stop at the city's edge. It extended into the very patterns of the surrounding landscape, creating a harmony so complete it shaped the flow of water, wind, and life for miles around. Success was measured by the laughter of children in the central plaza, not the ticking of a stock exchange clock. For the architects of these circular sanctuaries, the ultimate report card was written in the health of the land and the well-being of the people. They asked profoundly simple questions that modern planners often overlook. Was the water from the central spring still clear and sweet season after season? Did the granaries remain full after the harvest, a buffer against lean years? Could you walk from your home to your neighbors and know their name, feeling the fabric of community strong and intact? Most importantly, did the rhythms of the city, the festivals, the planting, the daily comings and goings, feel like a natural extension of the turning seasons? These were not soft, sentimental notions. They were the hard metrics of survival and flourishing. They measured vitality, the tangible pulse of a living system. This holistic dashboard stands in stark contrast to the narrow indicators that dominate our contemporary urban management. We fixate on gross domestic product growth, average commute times, and housing starts, numbers that say little about whether a place actually feels good to live in. The ancient principle invites a radical shift, a move toward key performance indicators that are qualitative, human-centric, and deeply ecological. Imagine a mayor's annual address not boasting of rising property values, but of improving air quality scores across every neighborhood. Picture a city council tracking its success by the percentage of residents who live within a 5-minute walk of a vibrant green space, or by metrics of social connection that measure loneliness. Envision an urban budget that proudly reports progress on closing resource loops, like the percentage of organic waste composted back into local soil or rainwater captured and reused. This is a call to redefine urban progress itself. It asks us to value long-term health and harmony over short-term extraction and expansion. It suggests that a city's true wealth is not in its bank vaults, but in the clean air its children breathe, the strength of its community bonds, and the resilience of its local ecosystems. When you begin to measure what truly matters, the entire design philosophy of a place must transform to meet those new goals. This holistic view does something remarkable. It stretches our understanding of design to encompass not just space but time itself. A city's true timeline is measured not in years but in lifetimes. This brings us to the eighth and perhaps most profound lost principle, designing for the seventh generation. In many indigenous cultures whose settlement patterns and communal longhouses often embodied circular, integrated living, every major decision was weighed against a sacred question: how will this affect the people 7 generations from now? City building was not a real estate venture, it was a covenant with the future. This philosophy of intergenerational equity fundamentally reshaped every aspect of design. Structures were not thrown up quickly for immediate profit. They were crafted from the most durable local materials: stone, timber, earth, meant to shelter families for centuries. More importantly, systems were designed for graceful adaptation. A building's foundation might be laid with the understanding that its use could change, that walls could be moved, or that a new wing could be added as a family grew. The city plan itself often left intentional open spaces, what we might call urban seams, where future generations could expand or innovate without tearing apart the original fabric. This was resilience thinking on a scale almost unimaginable to our modern, short-term cycles. It required a deep humility, an acknowledgement that we are temporary stewards of a place, not its permanent owners. Our contemporary challenge in reviving this principle is immense, as it clashes directly with political timelines focused on the next election and economic models obsessed with quarterly returns. We build bridges with a 50-year design life, not a 500-year vision. We develop neighborhoods for immediate market appeal, not for how they might mature and adapt over a century. Yet this ancient wisdom is precisely what we need to confront the long-horizon challenges of climate change and resource depletion. The good news is, our most advanced tools are now allowing us to think in these grand, intergenerational terms once more. Digital twins, incredibly detailed virtual models of entire cities, let planners simulate the impact of a new building or policy not just for next year, but for the next 50 years, testing how heat will accumulate, how traffic will flow, and how neighborhoods might evolve. New material science is creating self-healing concrete and biodegradable polymers, pointing toward a future where our infrastructure can maintain itself or safely return to the Earth. The most exciting convergence is where ancient pattern and modern tool meet, using artificial intelligence to optimize a neighborhood's layout for passive solar gain and social connection, or employing satellite data to protect the green belts that future generations will depend on for clean air and water. This is not about recreating the past in stone, but about encoding its deepest wisdom, the wisdom of longevity, care, and profound responsibility, into the very code and concrete of tomorrow. The most sophisticated tool in this revival is not a crane or a blueprint, but a line of code. We are now entering an era of digital mandalas, where the sacred geometry of balance is first perfected in the realm of simulation. Our most advanced technologies are being turned toward a singular purpose, not to conquer nature, but to finally comprehend its elegant logic with a precision our ancestors could only intuit. Computational fluid dynamics, the same science used to design sleeker airplanes, now models the gentle breezes that would flow through a curved street layout, proving how ancient radial plans naturally ventilated an entire community. Hydrological software can map every raindrop on a virtual hillside, allowing engineers to design catchment systems and permeable surfaces that mimic the genius of Machu Picchu's fountains or Dolivera's reservoirs, turning stormwater from a threat into a resource. Perhaps most beautifully, parametric design allows architects to feed principles like passive solar gain and material efficiency into an algorithm, which then generates thousands of potential building forms, each one a unique answer to the ancient question of how to live comfortably in a specific place using only what that place provides. This is the ultimate fusion of old wisdom and new capability. We are no longer guessing at the benefits of circular integration, we are proving them with irrefutable data. The most powerful application of this is the concept of the digital twin, a living, breathing virtual replica of an entire city or neighborhood. Within this safe, digital space, planners can run extraordinary experiments. They can simulate a century of rising temperatures on the current grid layout, watching heat islands intensify and energy demand soar. Then, with a few adjustments, they can reintroduce the principles of the circular city, widening the central green space, adding a ring of canopy trees, reorienting buildings to create shade corridors, and modeling the integrated water system. The results are not theoretical, they are quantifiable. The digital twin can report the exact reduction in peak summer temperature, the millions of gallons of stormwater retained, the tons of carbon emissions avoided through reduced cooling needs. This hard data is the key that unlocks funding and political will, transforming ancient pattern from philosophical ideal into a demonstrably superior model for modern resilience. It allows us to test the seventh-generation city on a computer before we ever pour a foundation, ensuring that what we build for our grandchildren is not just durable but actively regenerative. That data reveals a quiet truth that the most sustainable city is also the most livable one. This is the ultimate personal payoff, the profound way these ancient principles touch our daily lives in the modern world. Adopting this integrated wisdom is not a sacrifice, it is an upgrade for human happiness. Picture the simple act of a morning errand. In a neighborhood designed on these principles, you would not be strapped into a car for a tense commute along a congested highway. You would step out your door onto a tree-lined street, walking past community gardens on your way to a local market or cafe, likely greeting familiar faces along the route. This is not a fantasy, it is the practical result of designing for human scale for the 15-minute city. The benefits cascade from this single change. The physical activity of walking or cycling becomes woven into your day, not a separate chore to schedule. The cleaner air, a direct result of reduced car dependency and integrated green spaces, becomes the air your children breathe while playing in a central park. The ever-present sound might not be traffic, but the gentle murmur of a water feature in a public square, a modern echo of those ancient ceremonial fountains, providing a constant, calming connection to a natural element. This daily reality translates into measurable improvements in well-being, less stress from commuting, better cardiovascular health from active transportation, and a stronger immune system from time spent in green, biodiverse spaces. But the most profound shift might be psychological. In a place where your daily needs are met close to home, you begin to know your butcher, your baker, your neighbor. The social fabric, so often frayed by isolation in anonymous suburbs or dense high-rise towers, begins to mend itself through these repeated, casual interactions. You develop a deeper sense of place and belonging, a rootedness that comes from participating in a visible, tangible community. Your identity becomes intertwined with the health of your local stream, the success of the neighborhood harvest festival, the safety of the children playing in the shared courtyard. The city stops being a backdrop for your private life and becomes an active participant in it. This connection between macro design and micro well-being is undeniable. An environmentally harmonious city, by its very structure, nourishes the individual. It offers the psychological security of knowing your community can weather challenges together, the physical vitality that comes from clean air and an active lifestyle, and the simple, daily joy of living in a place that feels intentionally beautiful and humane. Of course, translating this beautiful ideal into our existing urban landscapes is not a simple task. The blueprint for a harmonious future is clear, yet the machinery of the present seems built to reject it. Why, if the principles are so sound, do we not see circular cities rising on every horizon? The answer lies not in a lack of technology or vision, but in a powerful trio of entrenched barriers, economic, political, and cultural, that actively work against this integrated model. Our current economic engine is fueled by extraction and expansion. Think of the vast industries that profit from the linear take-make-dispose system, from mining and manufacturing to waste management and landfill operations. A shift to a localized circular economy where resources are constantly reused and repaired disrupts these profitable pipelines. Similarly, the real estate development model often thrives on sprawl, turning farmland and forests into new, disconnected subdivisions because it is a faster return on investment than the complex, patient work of revitalizing existing urban cores with green infrastructure and communal spaces. The financial incentives are simply misaligned, rewarding short-term volume over long-term value creation for the community. Politically, the challenge is one of time scales. The benefits of a truly integrated circular design, like cleaner air, stronger social bonds, and climate resilience, accrue over decades. Yet political cycles operate in terms of 2, 4, or 6 years. There is a powerful temptation for leaders to prioritize highly visible ribbon-cutting projects, a new highway interchange or a standalone sports arena that promise immediate jobs and photo opportunities. The slow, systemic, and often invisible work of retrofitting a city's water management, redesigning its zoning for walkability, or protecting its agricultural greenbelt does not fit neatly on a campaign flyer, even though it does far more to secure a community's future. This creates a perverse disconnect where the most important work for our grandchildren offers the least political reward today. Culturally, we have grown accustomed to the convenience of invisibility. Our linear systems allow us to turn a tap without knowing the source of the water, flip a switch without seeing the power plant, and place a bag of garbage on the curb without a thought for its final resting place. This convenience comes at the cost of connection and responsibility. The circular city model, by contrast, makes systems visible and participatory. It asks us to see our rainwater, compost our food scraps, and perhaps even help tend a neighborhood garden. It requires a cultural shift from being passive consumers to being active stewards, a shift that can feel burdensome to those conditioned to expect effortless service. Furthermore, the deeply ingrained ideal of private property, with its fences and clearly demarcated boundaries, can clash with the communal land use, shared courtyards, and collective green spaces that are hallmarks of many circular designs. The very notion of a central commons owned by everyone and no one challenges a foundational pillar of modern life. Overcoming these interlocked hurdles requires nothing less than a fundamental revaluation of what we consider progress. It means designing economic policies that tax waste and pollution instead of labor, creating financial tools that reward patient, regenerative development. It demands political courage to champion policies whose greatest beneficiaries may not yet be born. And it calls for a cultural renaissance that finds dignity and joy in participation, rediscovering that the care we invest in our shared spaces is returned to us 100-fold in health, beauty, and community strength. This is a monumental challenge, but not an impossible one. To navigate it, we cannot simply copy ancient blueprints. We need new archetypes, fresh visions that translate these timeless principles into forms that speak directly to the hopes and technologies of our own age. The desert holds a memory of how to live well in a harsh place. In the heart of Abu Dhabi, rising from the sand, a bold experiment called Masdar City seeks to write that memory in glass and silicon. Conceived as a high-tech, zero-carbon, car-free prototype for the future, it is perhaps the most direct modern attempt to build a city from first principles of sustainability. While its geometry is not a literal circle, its spirit is profoundly circular. The entire community is compact and walled, a defined sanctuary designed to minimize its footprint and maximize internal efficiency. Within its bounds, you walk through narrow, carefully oriented streets that are permanently shaded by cleverly positioned buildings, a direct and brilliant application of ancient bioclimatic wisdom to deflect the relentless desert sun. At its heart stands a modern interpretation of the ancient wind tower, a tall, elegant structure that catches the high breezes and funnels cooler air down into the central plaza below, creating a natural oasis of comfort without a single watt of electricity for cooling. This is not a theme park replica of the past, it is a translation. The wind tower is not made of mud brick but of advanced composites, its form optimized by computational fluid dynamics. The shaded streets are not accidental but the result of solar path modeling across millions of data points. Here, the sacred geometry of balance is rendered in lines of code before it is ever built in steel and concrete. Masdar's ambition extends far beyond passive cooling. It aims for a near-perfect closed-loop system, a modern mandala of resource flow. Solar photovoltaic panels are not an afterthought. They are the primary building material, integrated into facades and canopies to power the city. A pioneering personal rapid transit system, a network of automated electric pods, glides silently beneath the streets, replacing the need for private cars and their emissions. Every drop of water is precious, with advanced treatment plants designed to recycle wastewater for irrigation and industrial use, mimicking the ancient reverence for the water cycle with reverse osmosis membranes and ultraviolet light. This city is a living laboratory, a testbed where every building, every streetlight, and every data stream is part of a grand experiment in urban metabolism. Of course, Masdar faces its own complex realities. Its high cost and the pace of its full build-out raise questions about scalability for the wider world. Yet its true value is not as a finished utopia, but as a crucial proof of concept. It demonstrates in real time and real space that the ancient principles of integration, localization, and harmony are not obsolete. They are, in fact, the very foundation upon which viable 21st century cities must be built. Masdar points the way forward by looking back, showing us that the most advanced urban form may be one that remembers how to listen to the wind, respect the sun, and live within a circle of its own making. A blueprint for the future does not require a blank slate. The most urgent and practical work lies not in distant deserts, but in the streets outside our own windows. We may not rebuild every metropolis from the ground up, but we can learn to weave the old wisdom into the existing fabric, stitching principles of circular harmony into the worn cloth of our linear cities. This transformation begins with a shift in perspective, from grand, totalizing plans to a practice we might call urban acupuncture. The idea is to make strategic, holistic interventions at key pressure points, gradually shifting the entire system toward greater balance from the inside out. Imagine identifying a single, car-choked intersection in a dense neighborhood. Instead of adding another lane, the intervention is to remove the asphalt entirely. In its place, a small, circular park is born with a community garden at its center, benches under shade trees, and a playful water feature fed by captured rainwater. This tiny mandala becomes a node of new life. It cools the air, slows traffic, creates a habitat for birds and bees, and gives people a reason to stop and connect. One by one, these nodes can be linked by green corridors, reclaimed bike lanes, and pedestrian pathways, slowly creating a network of circular logic within the rigid grid. This acupuncture can take many powerful forms. We can create intentional circular districts, dense, walkable neighborhoods where the 15-minute principle is enforced by design, complete with local markets, clinics, and workshops. We can practice daylighting, the magical act of freeing buried rivers and streams from their concrete tombs, restoring the soft, meandering curves of natural hydrology to become the hydrocentric heart of a renewed community. Policy becomes a vital tool, mandating green roofs that turn barren tops of buildings into spongy meadows that insulate, absorb stormwater, and provide space for urban apiaries. Zoning laws can be rewritten to not only allow but require integrated urban agriculture, transforming vacant lots, median strips, and flat, sunny rooftops into productive landscapes. Most fundamentally, we can redesign our streets, the arteries of our cities, to prioritize the flow of life over the storage of metal. This means widening sidewalks for pedestrians, painting protected lanes for bicycles and scooters, and installing ample seating and street trees, effectively reclaiming the radial street for human connection once more. Each of these acts is a stitch in a larger tapestry, a conscious choice to value long-term resilience over short-term convenience. They are not about erasing the past, but about healing its disconnections, inviting the old principles of environmental conversation and community focus back into the places that need them most. This brings us to a final, quiet reflection on what we have truly lost and what we stand to regain. The true legacy of these designs is not a set of blueprints, but a timeless philosophy for intelligent coexistence. Our journey through the rings of ancient cities reveals a profound truth, that environmental harmony was never an add-on feature, but the foundational logic of civilization itself. These communities wove principles of resource reverence, social cohesion, and cosmic alignment directly into the layout of their streets and the walls of their homes, creating places where human life and the natural world flourished as one. Today, as we face a climate crisis and deepening social fragmentation, these lost principles are far more than historical curiosities. They are a beacon of hope and a practical guide, offering a radically different vision for what a city can be. They challenge us to stop seeing our urban landscapes as machines for relentless consumption and to start designing them as living, breathing ecosystems for human flourishing. This is not a call to abandon modernity and rebuild in stone, but to rediscover the wisdom embedded in the circle and translate it for our age. It is an invitation to measure success by the health of our soil, the strength of our communities, and the resilience we leave for generations we will never meet. The circle, in its perfect geometry, has no end. It is a continuous cycle of giving and receiving, of building and renewing that our ancestors understood as sacred. Our task now is to choose to rejoin that cycle, to become participants in the places we call home once more. We would love to hear your thoughts. In the comments, share which principle from our journey resonates most with you, and one small, tangible way you believe we can begin to bring it back to life in our own community.